right, so who's caught up on Falcon and the Winter Soldier? Maya?
Oh, I'm caught up.
Mom?
Yes, Marcus.
Dad?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's talk about it.
So Marvel Studios' newest show, Falcon and Winter Soldier, really takes a serious look at race in this country and the current climate that we're in.
And, it also focuses on the military and how there could potentially be a dark side to being a service member within our military as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, there was run-ins with the police. You know what I'm saying? Falcon wanting to, trying to decide whether he wants to continue the legacy. There was a lot of heavy moments in there, and brought about some uncomfortable feelings for some people.
Oh, no, for sure. But I don't think the show was just about, like the dark moments and the thoughtful commentary on, racism and, the military and all that. It could also act as a cool buddy cop show, with Sam and Bucky's dynamic and whatnot.
Back and forth.
Absolutely.
There was some funny moments.
I know, a lot of great moments from the show. So, as we could see, we're all seated. Let's talk about the Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Let's talk about it.
So let's kick it!
So the main premise of the actual show is Sam Wilson and sort of his decision to on what to do with the shield after the events of Endgame, right?
Mackie. So
Anthony Mackie's character is Sam Wilson,
right.
exactly. The Falcon.
Okay.
And sort of like his back and forth on whether or not he should take the shield, sort of like as a black person in America, because Steve Rogers was cool enough to be like, you're a good man, I'm gonna give you this shield.
Right. He blessed him with the shield.
He blessed him with the shield, pretty much like, hey, this, I love that scene in Endgame where it's like, this doesn't feel like it belongs to me, or it feels like it belongs to someone else, and Steve Rogers like it doesn't, and so he has to take on that mantle, but he's conflicted about it.
He's conflicted about taking on the shield.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And then they turn around and give it to this John Walker dude.
Oh wow.
Yeah, let me tell you something, man. John Walker, that character, man. I mean, I don't know. It's a whole thing that you gotta, throughout the show, you gotta figure out whether he was a good guy, whether he was a bad guy, whether he was like just misguided, because he's a war hero. I mean, straight up, he was a war hero.
Right.
Yeah, straight up.
Should they have even given it to him?
And why?
And why?
Right.
And why? Why did he get the shield?
Well, I guess on paper and physically, he was Captain America.
Yeah,
he was the blue-eyed, blonde hair, good track record, and war hero. So he checked all the boxes off on paper, but emotionally and personality.
Well, my thing is, why did the government feel they needed to continue Captain America instead of just making up somebody else? You know what I'm saying? Why did they feel they needed to continue a Captain America?
I think part of the reason just has to do with the world that they created in and of themselves. The world that's created in and of itself, because this is, they did this after the snap, this event that, killed, basically took away like half the population of the universe for 5 years.
Right.
So I think when people are sort of like back and they want new hope, I guess maybe in their minds they wanted to
Captain America is that symbol of hope.
Yeah, because Captain America retired. And so he was always sort of like that stalwart.
Well, think about it. When Captain America first came out, excuse me, cutting you off. When he first came out, that's how they used him back in the day.
Yes,
you know
what
I'm saying?
rally.
That symbol,
right, that symbol
of hope to rally during the war.
Exactly.
So there's also, you have, Sam, then you have John Walker, but there's also Bucky, who's played by, what's the character's
Sebastian
name?
Stan.
So that character, in that we're talking about symbol of hope and all that, you see his trajectory and how he kind of developed in redemption.
That's a whole storyline in and of itself in there too. His
Absolutely.
redemption from being Winter Soldier, bad Winter Soldier.
Right.
Bad
Now
Winter
he's good Winter
Not
Soldier?
to good Winter Soldier.
Good Winter Soldier, White Wolf, whatever you want to call him.
Oh, okay.
White Wolf,
okay.
right?
Oh,
Yeah,
right, exactly.
and his whole personality is shifted. He's funny. I mean, the back and forth, like you said, between him and Sam was great.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of witty, funny things.
Right.
Yeah, I love how they saw in like Civil War like the chemistry between the two of them, and they were like,
Can you move your seat up? No.
we can make a show out of that. Make a show out of that. They made a show out of it.
Cop buddy show.
So Sam, right, the character, Steve Mackie, Anthony Mackie.
Sam's his brother.
That's his brother. That's his brother.
Yeah.
So Anthony Mackie, Sam, he was conflicted about, taking that shield. So is America really ready for a black
Captain
America?
I mean, I guess
I would say more ready now than before.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we'll get into that because it definitely wasn't ready before.
It was not.
You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
I think part of that, I guess, in universe, in MCU, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I would say yes. Reception wise. Yeah. But like, I don't know, in the real world, in the
real world, right? Yeah, exactly, right. Exactly.
I don't know. They got because you have a lot of cats on Twitter right now, right? Just talking about. I mean, I think the majority of folks are like excited about it, like cool. Sam Wilson's back in America. That's awesome. But then you have other cats that are like that wanted Bucky to be Captain America because there's a precedent for that in the comics.
Really?
Yeah, because Bucky took over. Bucky took over as Captain America when Steve Rogers died in the comics. He was like shot or whatever.
And Bucky took over.
Yeah, but then also in the comics, Falcon took over when Captain America got like old or whatever. Like they took in the comics, his serum was like taken out or whatever, so he aged and became an old man. Essentially, what happened in the movies.
In the movies, right?
So,
exactly.
Like Sam took up the ring.
So let's kind of talk about Isaiah Bradley in that character and what he kind of represents in that in this
like
series.
I was saying, right? Exactly. So Isaiah Bradley, his backstory basically, he was given the super soldier serum back in the day as well, around the same time that Steve Rogers was, right?
Actually,
before Steve Rogers,
before Steve Rogers in the comics.
Okay.
So in the comics, there's this this comic called Truth, Red, White, and Black, right? And it was this 6-issue or 7-issue miniseries in which depicted the tale of like the first Captain America, who was black because what they did was and before like Steve Rogers was given the serum, they experimented on black soldiers during the war.
Well.
AKA Tuskegee experiment.
Literally the Tuskegee experiment, but just in superhero form.
Exactly, but there's other, everybody goes to that Tuskegee experiment, but there's other things that...
There's
all kind of
experiment. There's all these different doctors. Like you got the father of gynecology, J. Marion Sims, who experimented on enslaved African women without anesthesia, without any of that, doing serious, personal invading experiments.
Yeah,
there's there's a long history of that in this country.
So they even brought that into the Marvel world with the experiment of
Isaiah Bradley.
Exactly.
Essentially, tricking these soldiers into doing these sort of like experiments, but like I said, with a superhero tinge on it, but based off of events that actually sort of like happened. And so you have this character, Isaiah Bradley, who in the comics, and they change it around a little bit in the show, but it's basically the same thing. Who was essentially experimented on by the government. He was one of the only people to actually survive those experiments, because they did a lot of bad stuff to these black soldiers. And one thing I really loved that they did in the show was in the 5th episode when Isaiah Bradley's talking to Sam Wilson, sort of about his experience.
That's the first time you met him.
No, that's the second time you met him.
Okay.
The second time.
Yeah.
So
that was that scene.
So he's talking to Sam. He's talking to Sam Wilson about his experience, right? And the story that he tells is of him rescuing his allies, his like fellow soldiers from
the ones that were
experimented on. Yeah, the ones that were experimented on.
Okay. Wasn't it like against orders? He wasn't supposed to.
Against orders, yeah.
He wasn't supposed to go and save them.
Yeah, he was supposed to say he saved them from a POW camp. He was Captain America. It's
the
where
same
he fought.
Way.
Yeah. It's where he fought Bucky and all that other stuff. They mentioned that in the second episode.
Okay.
But it paralleled
the same thing that Steve Rogers did when he went back in the day and saved his people.
That's right.
His crew.
That's right.
If you guys remember the Captain America, the first Avenger, the way that Captain America really became Captain America was he went over to a Hydra camp, saved a bunch of his soldiers, including Bucky.
Right.
And he came back. He was a war hero. But Isaiah Bradley...
What happened to Isaiah Bradley?
Did the exact same thing.
She got locked up.
Was thrown in jail for what, like
30
years?
30 years.
For doing the same exact thing.
Doing the exact same
thing.
So,
again, the discrepancies.
So the answer would be no, they weren't ready for a black...
Definitely not.
You know what I'm saying? A black Captain America.
Not then.
No.
And Isaiah actually told Sam, don't do this.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm sure. You talking about being a bitter? I mean, come on. He has every
right to
it. Absolutely. So, that kind of brings into what I had mentioned at the top of the show about the vets and how vets are treated, or the dark side of the military in some aspects. Some vets are treated differently than other vets.
Oh, absolutely.
And and that's kind of played out through history. Even if you take a look at, we live on Long Island, so we know about Levittown. So when the soldiers came home from World War II, they were afforded the opportunity to get these houses in the suburbs of Levittown, and it actually said that black folks do not need to apply. Negroes need not apply. So they didn't have the same, when they came home, they didn't have the same opportunities. And that kind of leads us into that wealth gap that we see within our country with black folks.
Even prior, even more basic than that. I mean, soldiers coming back from the war, if you were seen with a uniform on, they, beat you up or kill you, string you up. Just walking around with your uniform on, you served your country.
You looked like an uppity Negro to them.
They didn't like that, and they would,
exactly.
black soldiers would get killed. So
I mean, in the annex of history, it is very sort of like diluted the contributions that black soldiers made towards the war.
Exactly.
Like we fought in that. You rarely ever see that in movies.
We fought in all of the wars.
We fought in all of the wars.
Every single war on American soil.
Christmas addicts,
Every
like
single war on American soil we fought in.
So I love.
But I would say, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
I know. I was gonna say, sort of like even with vets, and we were talking about sort of like a lot of the black experience and whatnot, especially with Isaiah Bradley and sort of like the way that they treated him. But I would even say, to some extent, and this just sort of bringing it back to this show.
Yeah.
Even John Walker. I mean, he got off light, but even he was treated a little bit like you were this war hero. You did this bad thing, which was bad, but we're not gonna like help you anyway. We're just gonna send you off. We're just gonna we're gonna
kind of bury your story.
Yeah, we're gonna erase your name. You didn't do any of this stuff. When he was in that courtroom, he's unhinged. But not that he doesn't make a good point in saying that you guys made me this. You made me this.
Right. This is after he wilded out and did something terrible.
He did something awful.
Yeah, he did something awful because I don't know if it was just his mentality or he just on the power. He mentally wasn't prepared to be Captain America.
Nah.
Definitely
You had to have, because just real quick, Steve Rogers as Captain America, he was a special person before he even, because they showed it before he even got the serum. His fiber and how he was and his,
He was built different. I mean, I love that scene. I always come back to this scene. I love this scene where like they're in the camp or whatever, they throw over the grenade
and he jumps on
and covers it.
So he was cut from a different cloth prior too.
Absolutely.
So
even Zemo, when the characters is like, when he's talking about super soldiers and all that, and Bucky replies to him, but Steve was never that kind of person. He's like, you're right.
Speaking of super soldiers, let's talk about what did I call them? I don't remember.
They're called the Flag Smashers.
They're called the Flag Smashers. You
called
them something weird.
You said the swamp.
I don't know.
Smugglers? The swamp smugglers?
I think I said that. But let's talk about the Flag Smashers, right?
Okay.
So who are these people and what did they represent within the context of this show?
All right, so they were the evil villains, so to speak,
right?
On the basic level in the film.
Did that have a racial tinge to it in some kind of way? You think?
No.
Remember, we were talking about the immigration, right?
Well, I mean Well, I would say. Well, sorry. Yeah. But I would say. I guess racial in terms of, but I mean, I would say that's even beyond race. That's just immigration in and of itself.
Right. Well,
you know what I mean?
Which can be racial.
But the immigration, as far as immigration in America, it was racial. But in Winter Soldier, it wasn't based on race.
It was a matter of who got snapped out.
Yeah, it wasn't a race thing.
Isn't that what race really is about? The others, right? The race is always about the others and seeing people differently.
Understood, but it wasn't racial.
It's more than. I guess that's what I'm saying. That's more than race. That's a global thing. Because it's not like immigration policy stuff doesn't just happen in America.
Right.
It happens all over the place to a bunch of different people.
Right.
To a bunch of sort of different creeds and whatnot. So I think it was more about that.
Okay, so what did these smugglers do?
The Flag
Smashers.
Yeah. What did they do?
Please stop saying
Stop.
What did they do, Maya?
So basically, this was the group that were labeled terrorists by the government, and they believed that, after the snap.
Right.
After the snap, people were gone, obviously, and they were kind of left to their own devices. So when people came back after the snap, the government was focusing on the people who came back, helping them to get resituated. Reacclimated. Meanwhile, these Flag Smashers believed that the government was just like, all right, for the people who are already here, like, oh well, like they weren't getting that same assistance from the government that the people who were
snap being
back.
what? For some people may not.
So the snap is when Thanos snapped his fingers.
Big purple dude.
big purple
Right.
villain, the major villain in Avengers.
And half of the American
half
the
of the
world
global
Universe.
population.
Right.
Oh, universe?
Universe.
So,
Population disappears.
right. So check this out. Right. We talked about that, and you said the Smashers they wanted to get recognition for holding everything together while all these people were gone.
Right.
But then you have a situation where Sam goes in for a bank loan. Right. He's been snapped for 5 years, but he's not given the same opportunity because they don't want to give him this bank loan.
I think if he wasn't snapped, they wouldn't.
Well, that's
No,
what I'm
yeah,
saying. But that's
I
what
know
I'm
it's
saying.
different. It's
So
different
that-
when it's us.
The snap,
Right, that's what I'm
anytime
saying. So
anything.
even in the snap, when we come back, we still don't get the opportunity.
You don't have history. I've been gone for 5 years.
Right.
And he was technically on the run for another 2 because he was kind of a war criminal, but that's besides the point.
Okay, a little addendum, but you know what, but you know what I'm saying. So
But so was Captain America, so I mean, it all worked out.
right, but even in that situation, you get snapped back, and you still have to face the racism of not being able to get this bank loan, and they're going to use the excuse, "Oh, you ain't been here for 5 years." Really?
Well, anytime anything happens to the world, we get it 10 times.
You know
harder.
what? You're
That's
absolutely
just
right.
what happened. Look at COVID.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, the snap is essentially a version of COVID when you really think about it.
Yeah, I
Right.
think you're absolutely right with that, boy. I'm telling you. So let's talk about kind of just to bring this all together. What were some of your favorite points in the series, and how did they do? What kind of job did they do in really bringing out those racial issues? Some of the racial issues that we were talking about.
Well, I thought that I think that the show did a good job of portraying how it is for a black person in terms of like the bank loan scene, in terms of the cop scene when the cop pulled in hot trying to come at Sam Anthony Mackie
Until they recognized who he was, right?
Exactly. So
He was just a regular old black man before.
Yeah, it's like, what are you doing? What are you doing pressuring this white man? This white man with the metal arm. How dare you?
right.
Exactly.
So those were some interesting scenes, and then even Isaiah Bradley's story. I mean, that was.
Yeah.
I loved it. I figured they were going to bring that to the forefront, but I'm happy they did, and I'm happy they didn't dilute it or
Like
anything like
sugarcoat
that. They
it,
didn't
right?
sugarcoat
They
it.
did
They
it, yeah.
legitimately said, and I think that's a testament to the fact that they had a black showrunner, Malcolm Spellman, and like a diverse sort of like writers room and whatnot, to actually tell this story well.
Right.
You know?
You could see that. You
Yeah,
could definitely
it came across for sure.
Absolutely. What about you, Jay?
Well, I mean, they did a great job with the whole racial component of it. But in terms of, I just want to say, in terms of, favorite scenes just in general, not talking on the racial aspect of it, I love the dynamic between Sam and his sister. Anytime there was going back and forth.
That was
That was
good,
great.
Yeah.
And him when he was
true.
like at home and he was with his people.
With his people.
With
Yeah.
her, I love that.
Yeah,
with his
yeah.
nephews.
Yes.
It
You know
felt
what I'm saying? Them
authentic.
talking like
It
that
was
old dude
authentic,
was like, when
yeah.
you gonna let me borrow them wings?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
It felt real.
It felt
like
real.
that would really happen.
Oh, no,
no
we
question.
would have that conversation.
No question. That would be,
Yes.
Mr. Tyrone would have said that for you, So I love that, and of course the fight scenes was crazy.
Oh yeah.
That initial fight scene in the first
the
episode
first
and the
episode.
last
And the last
episode.
episode.
Yo!
crazy.
Okay, we got to talk about the suit though. When he actually became Captain America.
Yeah, we screamed.
We screamed.
Yeah.
That's so
Captain
crazy.
America.
Fire.
Yeah,
That suit is fire.
Yeah. Now that I think was my
That
favorite
was
scene.
when he came in with the shield and he busted in. I was like,
Comic book
oh!
accurate costume
Yeah.
is.
Is that
it was
it?
100%
Okay.
accurate.
Okay.
Yeah.
You love to see it.
Wow.
I also like when he was training with the shield.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
scared the whole time. But
That
yeah.
shield's no joke.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was good.
Also, sort of going back to like the home life, that Sam had, and all that. I love how like Bucky also felt comfortable
Yeah,
when
he
he was
sure
there.
did.
When he came to
Yes.
help him.
And that was like authentic too.
That was authentic,
This
too.
is my boy.
He was
Right.
invited to the cookout.
He was
was
invited to the cookout.
Like that one scene when he asked him, "Why don't you use your mechanic?"
Oh, yeah,
your
yeah.
metal arm.
yeah.
It's
He's
like,
like, "Well, I'm right-handed." He's not used to, It
And he was
weird.
trying to holler at his sister.
He was trying- a little
oh,
something.
yes, he was.
Or
Like,
was his sister trying to holler at him?
Right.
He is cute.
Yo, here we go.
But no, it was cool. I love their dynamic. I love the fact that Bucky had this sort of like, that he's finally, at the end of it, he finally came to terms with sort of like
Oh, yeah.
who he is, making
Yeah.
amends,
Making
and,
amends.
and at the end where he's like hanging out with Sam and his sister and the kids and all that, and he's like
everything
happy.
was cool. Those
Yeah,
were-
he's finally happy.
The relationships was cool. Even like with with Bucky and the older Asian brother.
Oh, right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That was cool. I like that
was
relationship
nice,
that they had.
yeah.
So I like the relationships in the movie.
They did a good job with the
They did a
relationships
good job.
They did a
and
great
stuff.
job.
Yeah.
Overall, it was a
movie.
great
Yeah.
series.
Great
Yeah.
show.
Great show.
Great
Oh,
show.
great
Great
show.
Great show.
Great program.
You know,
Great
great
program.
Falcon and the Winter Soldier to
Yeah.
Captain America and the Winter Soldier.
That's
That was
right.
a nice little touch.
Yeah, oh,
at the
yeah,
end.
at the end.
So yeah, before we forget, one of the scenes that I loved the most was near the end with Isaiah Bradley and how Sam showed him like his memorial and his statue
The
and whatnot.
statue. Yeah,
That was awesome.
That was so
That was a
dope.
nice,
That was a nice touch.
acknowledgement,
For sure.
recognition.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
of people who actually fought for our country and.
Yeah,
Right.
that
You know.
scene.
Sacrifices and stuff.
Yeah, now that scene was very emotional. That almost got me.
All choked up.
A little choked up. Nah, that was dope. And
Yeah.
he really appreciated it.
no.
Isaiah,
Yeah.
did.
That was
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah,
That was great how they did that.
Dope.
So,
Highly
And I'm
recommended.
excited, and plus,
Highly recommended.
Yeah.
highly recommended,
definitely.
and it's cool because we getting that fourth one.
Yeah.
With the showrunner, he's gonna be writing that one too.
Oh,
and
is
it's
that
gonna
okay?
Yeah.
We're getting
Nice.
A movie, I think. Yeah, a movie.
That's gonna be
So
dope.
continuing the story, so that's pretty cool.
So we can talk about this for like hours and hours, but I wanted to let everybody know that we are on every Wednesday at 6:00
Yes.
p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Facebook and on YouTube. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share, and all of that.
on
All of
YouTube,
that.
hit the notification bell so you get notified when we put out new videos.
Ding.
Just like that.
Just like that.
Just like that?
6
Just like-
p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Yes.
All right.
Oh, 6 p.m.
Eastern Standard Time.
Oh, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. What?
Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Tick tock, timeless. Falling in silence. Do roll, mileage. Take off, pilot. Ready for blast off. Get ready for blast off. Pilot. Already told you I'm a one-on-one. I'm about to bust those summer up. Plotting, you think that I'm dumb or something?